Hello and welcome back to A Watch Pilot, the home of all things watches. Today we're currently in the Isle of Wight for the All Around the Island yacht race, and I'm joined by Watch Pilot's co-founder Akbar Hussain.
Thank you, Jack. We're here today with Marathon Watches, who are sponsoring the boat race. I'm very excited to be talking to Mitchell Wein.
So we're going to head over to the race village and meet Mitchell.
We're here at Isle of Wight. I'm alongside Mitchell Wein, who is the president of the Marathon Watch Company. So Mitchell, can we start off with just a small introduction and what brings you to the race?
Well, what brings Marathon to the race is that we have been asked to be the official timekeeper for the race. Hence, we've manufactured our new yachting stopwatch, which is made specifically for sailing. But as well, we are now launching our line of Marathon watches into the UK market. I felt that this was quite an opportune event to do it, and a fun event, so that's why.
I've been doing a little bit of research on Marathon watches, and there's quite an interesting history behind the watch brand. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
My grandfather started Marathon Watch in 1939. I think our moment of glory was 1941 when the War Department requested for my grandfather to supply watches for the Canadian troops going overseas, as well as fortifying and helping the Allied troops heading into Italy. You know, after the war, we tuned into what the market wanted, and for us, we're more of a professional wristwatch manufacturer, meaning we manufacture watches with purpose and clocks with purpose, and we started making special clocks for battleships, stopwatches for sports and military use, training, as well as wristwatches that could be used in a very duress environment.
You mentioned there that you make watches for the American Navy, was it?
Well, we actually manufacture timing devices for many governments. One of them is the US government, and one of the departments within the US government is the Department of the Navy. We're very proud to come up with some solutions on their clock systems for submarines, as well as the Canadian government. As far as wristwatches are concerned, many of our watches, or most of our watches, are made for a purpose. So we will manufacture to a specification in accordance with
what is
those.
that specification? How does a Marathon watch differ from, let's say, your standard watch?
Well, first of all, our watches are manufactured in accordance with a specification that details what the purpose of the watch is, and when there is a large explosion or impact, our watches will not stop. They could withstand certain levels of water resistance and dust resistance, including heat and extreme cold, especially for our forces in the north. Remember, a wristwatch for many governments is worn on the outside of a uniform. That's why some of our wristwatches have very long straps to put on the outside of the uniform, and they could be exposed to very high temperatures.
My next question was going to be, tell me something that maybe our viewers wouldn't know.
You want to know a story? Want an interesting story? The watch I'm wearing right now it's an Arctic edition because we use a white dial for extreme light conditions. With the Canadian government, they were always buying search and rescue watches from us. In those days, many in the 1970s and 80s, we'd procure our cases from a case manufacturer, and the tooling broke. I had friends in the military and a lot of connections, so I went out east to our submarine base. I had a few friends there, and I said, if we have to make a new case, what's wrong with our old one? And when I first developed this watch, I thought, well, it's ugly, it's big, but at least the soldiers who asked me to develop it would be wearing gloves and would be able to turn the turning bezel, as opposed to a flat turning bezel. With the crown, we knurled the crown, so with wet hands, it's easy to adjust the time. The Canadian government was the first government to purchase this, and the US government saw that the Canadians were wearing this watch and asked us if we could supply to them. And long story short, we've supplied this model for 5 different governments as of yet.
It's obvious to see that all the design aspect of the watch, you've taken into consideration that this is going to be worn by the military.
For a purpose.
For a purpose. As well as that, you're retailing. So who's your typical customer outside the military?
Our typical customer outside the military is the person, I hope, not going to leave his wristwatch or her wristwatch in a drawer and actually use it. Our watches are purpose built and they could really take a beating. Our watches, some people say, oh, do you have a ladies edition or a men's edition? We don't believe in dividing the sexes, and our watches are divided by size, such as a 34 millimeter for a smaller person, 46 for someone who has a very large wrist, and that's it. And whether it's a woman or man is incidental. And I think that we've been very successful at that. And I think that has to do with our Canadian ethics as well.
So where do you see the brand, let's say 5 or 10 years from now?
We want to partner with reliable retailers that take care of the customer and represent our brand correctly. I think it's very important that our brand grows with our partners, our team members, such as Watch Pilot.
So Mitchell, I've got one final question for you.
Sure.
I've noticed that you are wearing a Marathon watch. Could you tell me why you've chosen that model?
The reason why I chose the large G-SAR with an Arctic dial is because we're at the Isle of Wight today, and we're going to be working under bright conditions. And when you're working under bright conditions, it's much easier to see the time with a white dial. Our black dials are really manufactured for search and rescue, which would be in a dark environment. And I felt it was new and nice and would help me see the time.
So
and that's the most important thing.
You've got black version as well then?
I have every version.
Thank you for your time. It's really appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
It was great speaking to Mitchell and getting an insight on Marathon watches.
And a huge thank you to Marathon Watches for inviting us down to this event. I think we've had a great time.
It's
been good to see the race as well, and obviously speaking to Mitchell. If you want to purchase any of these watches, be sure to head over to our website, watchpilot.co.uk, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.